Welcome to this wizarding world of You Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys watch two movies randomly thanks to the power of the internet and then give our thoughts. So, with me as always is the Lord Voldemort to my Albus Dumbledore, Kyle Mulford. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing all right. Abracapocus.
Abracapocus.
Hocus cadabra?
Oh, that's
Walla
got
Walla, Washington.
yes. Mecca Mecca High Mecca Heidi Heidi Ho.
And anybody gets that reference, then good on them for having watched Bugs Bunny. Uh, I'm doing good. What did we watch this time? We watched Harry Pothead Gets the Philosopher's Stoned.
Yep, the Harry Pothead starts philosophizing on the Express or something.
we dipped back
Harry
into,
Potter, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, as it's known in the U.S.
and I did watch Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So,
It's the same movie.
and because Americans are dumb, they actually filmed all the scenes where they said Philosopher's Stone, and they filmed the scene twice. Once with the actor saying philosopher, and once with them saying sorcerer.
That's funny because I guess Americans don't know anything about philosophy, which is fair.
Well, you know what's funny though is I was reading that J.K. Rowling regrets having given them the permission to change that, and ironically, they did it because they thought that like you said, Americans wouldn't get the philosopher thing, and and apparently, like, she gets a lot of Americans coming up to her going, "Why didn't you call it the Philosopher's Stone?"
Nice. Haunting her all these years later.
Yeah. It sounds like J.K. Rowling had a lot of say in this movie, so
I mean, yeah, she's had a lot of input and then kind of slowly got more and more input to the point with where the Fantastic Beasts movie she was able to write the screenplay herself.
okay. Yeah, because this came out in, what was it, 2002, 2001?
2001, I believe.
2001. And I think she only had up to the fourth book published or something like that. So apparently they worked really close with her because they wanted to make sure that nothing they put in the script would contradict what she had in store for the books later on. And they apparently also at one point wanted to do like a CGI film because they were worried about the kids, growing up too fast and not being able to like do this. But she put a kibosh on that. So no, I don't want that. She wanted live action. And they also considered like bashing a bunch of the books into one movie, but she didn't want that either. So they're like, okay, we'll produce all 8 movies back to back so that, that we could just keep on rolling through them. So yeah. And I think throughout the whole thing, she got a lot of say in it just because she wasn't done writing the books either. So
And then she actually was able to finish the books in time before the movies got through all of them.
yeah, unlike George R.R. Martin.
Poor man. Poor man. I feel bad for him.
He probably watches the rest of that series going, that's not what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah, and also because we're talking about J.K. Rowling, we can say this for sure. Trans women are women, trans men are men. They are all valid, and no turfs here. You guys are terrible. Go away.
Yeah, I was kind of sad to because it's so ironic that she was one of those people that was kind of a hero to people because she's like, oh yeah, Dumbledore's gay, and this is all okay and everything. And then now recently she's got these terrible other things to say. I don't know what all she said. I just know that she kind of got on the shit list of most people now
Mm-hmm.
when she was actually on the really good list for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really too bad. So
And then even saying the Dumbledore is gay thing, and it's almost like she's trying to inject more interesting stuff in the book when she didn't actually write it in, I guess. So
yeah, I always questioned that too. I was like, my thing with that was, did that really even matter? Even
mm-hmm.
like, I don't think it did. It felt like an afterthought,
Maybe.
but it might have been an afterthought. And then because there's nothing in the books or the movies to indicate that.
Agreed.
But speaking of,
So, so what is your kind of a history with Harry Potter as a series?
My history is when I was in college. So I graduated in 97. So I graduated college in 2002. So, like we said, this came out in 2001 and they were on the fourth book already. I read the first couple of books in college. And after reading, I got like halfway through the third book and I was like, I'm done with this because I read the first one. I was like, this is okay. And then I read the second one. And I'm like, the first 5 chapters were a recap of the first book. And then I got to the second one. And then the first 5 chapters were a recap of the previous 2 books. And that really bothered me. So I was like, I'm not going to read any more of this. So then
Mm-hmm.
I went on a long hiatus. I still watched the movies just because, I watched everything in college, went to the theater for everything. But I didn't read the books ever until my late 30s after I had met my now wife. And she was a big fan of the books. And I was like, yeah, I just couldn't get into them before. And then eventually she talked me into reading, not talked me into, but like she liked them enough that I was like, okay, I'm going to give them a try again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read them. And once I got over the fact that there's too much recap in the first couple of books,
Mm-hmm.
they once I got through the whole series, I was like, okay, that really is a good series. I could see why like people like these. Other than number 5, I think it is that the one with Umbridge,
Yeah, Order of the
where
Phoenix.
oh my god, for like 100 pages, I just wanted to say, I get it. She's a horrible person. Let's move on. Oh my god, I can't take this anymore. Just
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over of Umbridge like doing bad things to the kids and whatever. And I was just like, it was so repetitive. But that ended up being my only complaint in the whole series was number 5 got too repetitive with Umbridge.
Mm-hmm.
So how about yourself? You're a little younger than me, so
Yes, more than a little younger. There's a bit of an age gap between us. In 1997, I was 3 years old, so you can do the math there, I guess. But so that meant that my mom read the first 4 books to me and my sister as they were coming out. She would read them to us every night at bedtime. So that means I was kind of like target audience, right? Kind of grew up with it. Harry Potter was one of those things that was always there. As that I got older, the movies and the characters got older too. So it really did feel like I grew up with that series in particular because the characters actually aged like I was growing older.
yeah, and you were in that group too that would have been nice for like the kids who were young enough for that first one to really hit home. And as you grow up with the books actually get darker
Mm-hmm.
too, but you're getting older as they come out. So
So you feel like I did feel like I was able to handle it more by the time the books got going and got more, yeah, darker, spookier, more serious. I felt like I was getting more serious, more quote unquote grown up.
yeah. So this I don't know how they got started on, with only 4 books in a series that they knew hadn't there was no ending to yet. They decide that Warner Brothers decides to make a movie and apparently Chris Columbus really wanted to do this. Like he read
Mm-hmm.
the books to his daughters and didn't really know about it at first, but then after he read it to them, then then he's like, "Oh, I really want to do this movie," and so he really put himself in there and to try and get this job. And of course, Chris Columbus from his directorial debut, Adventures in Babysitting.
Mm-hmm.
He also wrote Gremlins and Goonies. So Chris Columbus had a good career in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much he's done since then, other than the first 2 Harry Potter films, because he did the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are obviously his 2 highest grossing films.
Yeah.
But they had the same, a guy named Steve Kloves wrote the screenplay for all 8 of the films. So,
Nice.
because I was looking it up, I was looking up, oh, okay, what else has he written? Well, between the first film, the Harry Potter film, and the last Harry Potter film, the only screenplays he wrote were the Harry Potter films. But
Hey, man.
I'm sure that got him a pretty penny, though.
I mean, that's a good gig to keep you going for like a decade. So, like,
Yeah. And I guess as far as like the kid actors go, I mean, we can get into who's in this film. Is The main three are Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert Grint, and I guess they went through thousands of kids auditioning and
Mhm.
everything. But Chris Columbus saw Daniel Radcliffe in a made-for-TV two-parter about David Copperfield or something like that, and apparently he got just stuck on this kid. He's like, "This is the kid I want for this film." And so and finally eventually got him. Um, and then they got the other two, and basically they I watched a couple interviews, and they're like, it was amazing how their chemistry just really took off, and they stayed really close through the all of the movies, and they just had this really good bond right away, and it really shows in the film because these are actual 10-year-olds playing these roles, and you have that risk of them growing up and getting more awkward, kind of like Boyhood. But I I like to joke about that film because everyone was always like, "Oh, when that movie came out, I saw that in the theater, and it's all, oh, he did this thing where he like filmed every couple of years with Ethan Hawke and oh, what's her face,
Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette, and then this kid, and they use the same cast, and it's kind of like watching this kid grow up, and it's like, oh, nobody's ever done this before. And I was like, while I'm watching the movie, I'm going, yeah, we have. We had Harry Potter. And
Hmm.
is that more of a fantastical instead of like more of a real life type story? Yeah, but you're still watching this group of kids grow up from like 10-year-olds to like 18-year-olds, we had
Hmm.
that before, and it spanned 8 movies. But um also then we had really good cast beside that, and apparently this is another thing J.K. Rowling had a lot of say in. She actually handpicked Alan Rickman to play Snape.
Nice.
And the thing is I think that she actually told him everything she had planned through the 7th book so that he knew how to play the character. And he's the only one that knew anything past the 3rd or 4th book.
Hmm.
So,
That's
and I think she picked out Maggie Smith and Robbie Coltrane for Hagrid, and what Maggie Smith play?
Professor McGonagall.
McGonagall, yeah. So, and then of course we have Richard Harris playing Dumbledore, who passed away after actually before the second one even came out. So he was in the first two.
Hmm.
So, but a really good cast because I love Robbie Coltrane as Hagrid.
He
He's
makes it. I guess yeah. He's funny, but also like there's a certain sincerity because what really makes Hagrid work is like Hagrid has to be able to be trustworthy to the kids. Otherwise, the whole thing would just fall apart.
Yeah, and he's really got that because he's got that rapport with the kids because he's also kind of like, oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna get away with this thing too, and oh, don't tell them I use magic outside of the school, and this will be our little secret, blah blah blah. Like he just is so he really is kind of this sincere, gentle giant, and
Hmm.
it's a really great character and a really great performance by Coltrane. So I suppose we get into the movie itself, which
I mean, we don't even really have to. Everyone's seen it by now.
yeah,
So let's
you
just go through what we liked. I think, like I said, the adult cast really helps elevate the kids cast.
yeah, Maggie Smith is also another wonderful. Maggie Smith's always great.
Anytime she shows up, and Maggie Smith and Alan Rickman in particular, I felt like they're really good at selling like these absolute nonsense words, but because they're very professional actors, they make it work.
Yeah, they really do. You not once do you think, yeah, you don't think about this nonsense word that she made up, Expelliarmus.
Yeah.
What is that? Just, but yeah, Alan Rickman as Snape is just he is perfect casting. So I mean, I'm glad
Hmm.
she had him in mind for that role. Yeah, you got so much packed into this first movie too because there's so much introduction to a lot of things. You've got the school, you've got the kids first getting there, you've got the Quidditch game. And can we talk about the Quidditch game though? That's the one thing where it's like she comes up with this sport which is
Hmm.
kind of cool, but then she has this golden snitch that's worth 150 points. So if you get someone who's really good at catching the golden snitch, the rest of the game doesn't matter ever.
Yeah. Also, how do you feel about the Quidditch sequence? Watching it now, was it still fun? Because I remember the first time I saw it, it was riveting. I was just blew my mind as a kid. Because it was like, oh my gosh, this is the book come to life. They're actually flying around on broomsticks. This is amazing.
I think it's still pretty awe-inspiring for what it is. Like it's it really is. It's like you feel like you're watching a sport on broomsticks. It's
Mhm. It doesn't quite go full pod racing, I suppose.
No, I don't think so. I think it still works the way it's edited and put together, and like the excitement, the crowds, cheering and all that stuff. But then you also have the stuff going off on the sides, which helps with, like the kids noticing Snape mumbling
Hmm.
and all that. So you do have stuff going off on there, and then and like I said, I think it's silly that there's the whole golden snitch thing. It's just like, oh, he caught the golden snitch. You win the game automatically. It's like, why'd they even play the game then? Just that always got me about that.
Who cares?
here's here's a way to automatically win. It's like playing the I win card.
I suppose.
You're playing cards with your friend. You want to play I win? I win.
There.
uh, but no, I think that's still pretty cool, and those effects hold up. Some of the other effects, it's like 50-50 because like some of the CGI, like the troll and the three-headed Cerebus dog, what Fluffy,
Yes.
they're kind of the
They
edges
show
kind of show in their
their
CGI.
age a little bit, yeah.
But there's other things like the ceiling in the cafeteria or whatever, the main hall that like is like
Yeah.
a sky image is
It doesn't
actually
make
really well
sense.
done. And apparently in this one, all the candles that are floating, they're actually like candles on these lantern candles on wires, and they're on like this contraption to make them like go up and down to make it look like they're floating. Well, I was reading somewhere that one of them like it got so hot that it burned the wire and it fell to the ground, and luckily
Oh no.
no one was hurt. But then they said that like the rest of the movies they use CGI for the candles.
I suppose, yeah. Don't want it to
um,
be a liability.
and then they did use there was a lot of CGI, but there was some practical effects too. There was an owl trainer that came in, and they actually a lot of the scenes apparently where the owls were delivering mail in the Great Hall, the close-ups of one owl just swooping in, those were actual owls.
That's
But then
cool.
when they showed like the big scenes, there were a few real owls in there, and then they filled in all the gaps with CGI owls
Makes
because
sense.
they were like, if we had too many in there, then they'd just run into each other.
They poop everywhere.
Yeah, that's another problem. But
And then I know Hedwig a lot of times for when Harry's talking to Hagrid, that's of course that's a real owl.
yeah, and I want to say that I read somewhere that like it was played by like three different owls.
That makes sense, because if one's in a bad mood, you just switch out for another one.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and then the chess sequence with the giant chess pieces at the end was pretty cool. That's
That's
still
cool.
those effects still held up and everything. The movie itself, the characters, I mean, we talk about what worked with those, and what I like is that like there's your main character is this boy who is this celebrity, but he's an unintentional celebrity, and
Hmm.
he doesn't even understand, like, so like you have everyone oohing and awing at him, and he's like, there's even a line in there, he's like, I'm not a wizard, I'm just Harry. So
I'm just some guy.
I'm just a kid. Who are you? What is this? What? And ironically, he's supposed to be a great wizard, but it was pointed out to me that in this first movie he never casts a spell.
Yeah, he's not. Hermione does the most of the work here.
and I
That's kind of that's how she does it.
and I love Hermione and her like snotty attitude.
Hmm.
It's Wingardium Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Hmm.
I picked this up for some light reading. You call that light? Uh, And yeah, the chemistry was really natural, and like knowing where, who gets together at the end and everything after 7 books, the chemistry really works for these kids too, because you've got Hermione and Ron, who they're 10-year-olds. So what do 10-year-olds do when they like each
They
other?
hate each other, you know.
They kid each other and make fun of each other, and like and sometimes it hurts. Like there's a great scene where, that leads to the troll in the bathroom, where Ron doesn't know that Hermione's listening, and he says something about, yeah, no wonder she doesn't have any friends, and that's when she storms off to the bathroom because,
Yeah, because kids can be jerks sometimes.
yeah, and she's sitting there thinking, oh, these two are my friends, and then he says something like that. And so yeah, so the it's really written really well, these child characters, that the confluence of events feels really natural.
Hmm.
And then you get these 3 kids who have a good rapport with each other and a good chemistry, and it just really works on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies where, like, the first one, especially in every sort of series, at least a planned series like this, and then Lord of the Rings also comes to mind. This first film has to get everything just right, or the whole franchise doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if this was just like a non-starter. It's like, oh, hey, here we've got this cool book series, and then this was like this crappy movie, like so many other book series. It seems like
Yeah, because there's a lot of those series that never took off, like Percy Jackson. They made the first one, and
they got 2 of those. So,
oh, did they make a second one?
and there was a musical.
Oh, all right. Um, yeah, it really does. It's funny with some of those where it's like you have some that finished the series and some that didn't, and it's like you have one or two movies, and it's like, well, there's no real end to it because you didn't do it well enough to have people really love it. And then this one, people loved the books, and Chris Columbus really got it right. And that's one thing, is that when they decided to do one book per movie instead of cramming like 3 books into one movie, I watched interviews where like Chris Columbus and the screenplay writer and the producer and everybody, they're like, the one thing we wanted to do was make it faithful to the book. And I think, they made it as faithful as they could, because you can't put everything in from the
Yeah,
book.
that's just the nature of adaptation. Some stuff works better on the page versus works better on the screen. Like if it's just so much of the books is just like, hey, we're just hanging out, living our lives, going to class, hanging out with our friends. Well, some of that stuff you can only cram so much of that stuff into like a 2-hour movie or like a 2-hour 20-minute movie.
Yeah, and I wonder if it also helped the screenplay writer that Rowling was there to help out, because then she can say, "Oh, this isn't going to be something that you need to continue on into the other movies. It's not that big of an important thing," you know,
Hmm.
and pick and choose what to take out of the book for the adaptation. Because yeah, this is already what, a 2 hour and 20-minute movie,
Hmm.
something like that. So you put everything in the book, you got like a 3.5 hour movie.
Yeah, or longer.
Because
You know,
like I
Lawrence
said,
of Arabia.
yeah, like I said, this first movie, there's so much to put in there, because you've got the introduction of the characters, and that's the hardest part with one of the first movies, is you've got to introduce the characters in such a way that you get to know them.
But also, especially so that you want to like hang out with them and to keep doing that for like the next decade.
Yeah. And then on top of getting to know all of the characters, you still have an actual story in there about what's going on at Hogwarts with this, Philosopher's Stone, and the mystery of it and all that stuff. And speaking of them going and finding all that, one of my favorite scenes is actually the side characters are great too. Some of the side kids is like Neville Longbottom when he
Mhm.
confronts the friends. I think that's a really great scene.
It is a really good scene. And then also, I forget the kid's name who everything explodes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think that scene with Neville Longbottom confronting them, and they still get past by like paralyzing him or whatever. But it's a really strong scene, and then it gets a great payoff at the end, at the very end of the film.
And then don't forget Tom Felton hamming it up as Draco Malfoy. Just. You're supposed to be a terrible kid for the next decade.
Yeah,
Have fun.
having fun living that down. Then he becomes the guy who releases the monkeys in Planet of the Apes.
Hey, he's one of those guys. Like he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to act again. He's fine for the rest of his life.
He was actually in the CW series The Flash for a little bit, and I actually kind of
It's
liked
fun.
him in that.
It's one of those things. Like, yeah, I can do this for fun. Kind of like how Daniel Radcliffe is able to do a movie like
Swiss
a
Army
Swiss
Man.
Army Man.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe is one that I love that he doesn't have to work anymore because then he picks really intriguing projects and just I watch a lot of his movies just because I'm like he picks stuff that he wants to do, like and not necessarily anything that's really big or anything.
Yeah, kind of like how he's definitely financially secure where he can do like weirder stuff and maybe help finance these films too. It's like, hey, this project sounds interesting to me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna help finance it too because I find this interesting enough. So sometimes like a franchise film can help fund like three or four other movies.
Yeah, because he was just in what was that one I just recently watched? Guns Akimbo. So much
Yeah.
fun, so much fun. um, but yeah, and then the end of the movie is fun, if not a little really kind of forced, like you do with these kind of movies, where it's like, okay, we showed that throughout the movie that Hermione is great at spells and potions and stuff. Oh, and then we had to force one scene in where Ron is playing chess so that we show that he's good at chess.
Yeah.
And then of course Harry Potter is great on a broom and he's a natural on a broom. So when they get there where they're trying to find the Philosopher's Stone and they have to get through all the traps, it's like, oh, hey, look, the three things we have to get through, each one of them is one of our specialties.
Well, that's just a good storytelling. If it was something they were all terrible at, it would be frustrating for the audience.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's
I
just
can't move forward if they just get stuck there for an hour.
yeah, and it's still like you said, it works. I don't know what else you can do because I mean that there's a reason that they do that in every most movies because they're setting it up that this is how they get past it, but it just like seems so specific to them, like just very specific to them.
Mhm.
But it's yeah, I agree it still works, and then but you do have the at the end. You know why he couldn't stand you touching him? Because of love, Harry.
I
Love.
mean, this is a world where like three-headed dogs and wizards exist, so like whatever.
I know
You know,
what, but that was my problem with the whole love defeated. I'm like, this is a wizarding school. Can we have like magic actually defeat him?
the magic of love.
The magic of love. That I think that was the cheesiest aspect of the story. And if that's the worst you've got, then you've got a pretty good movie.
Yes.
So, and it
Um,
is it is meant for kids like this first one. It's funny how this first one is, and then like they get as they progress, they actually get darker, and it's like, oh no, I can read this first one to my 4-year-old, but I don't know if I want to read the seventh book to my 4-year-old. But it is meant for kids, so like something like that actually really works. So
well, by the time we got to the fourth book, Mom actually made sure to read like one particular chapter, like the chapter at the end with like the weird rebirth of Voldemort or whatever. I remember specifically that she made sure to read that chapter to us during the day so we wouldn't get nightmares.
oh nice. Yeah, I didn't grow up with a series like that. That's kind of a cool thing that like a generation grew up with these books coming out in a series. Like I didn't have any like series that was coming out as and everybody read their kids these books that
Yeah, this I guess felt like a little bit of a cultural touchstone, at least for my generation, which I think still a treasure and still has a lot of importance, but also at the same time, it is still part of growing up when you realize that, maybe some of the people you liked then aren't so great now. Like, oh man, it's a bummer that this person is a jerk, but I can still have those memories of enjoying that book series for me. Am I gonna go see any of the more Fantastic Beast movies? Not really. I mean, is there any? I can't like
because they're
if you,
not great.
I like the first one. I thought the first one was fun. I
Yeah.
didn't watch the second one. I can watch the first one again.
Yeah, I agree. I'm one of those that can I can separate the artist from the art.
Hmm.
Whereas a lot of people can't, because I'm like, I'm sorry. Am I gonna stop watching this person's movies because I found out they're a giant douche? No, the movie's already happened. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't like all of a sudden hate this movie that I grew up loving because I found out the actor or director is a dick in real life. You know, it's same's going to go for this. The books and the movies are fun, and
And that's a personal choice for everybody, and I can't make that choice for anyone else except myself. So.
no, and I agree. And if for people who can't, because I mean there are things that people have done awful things, and people don't want to support that. But for me, it's a lot of people worked on all of those movies and everything. With an author, it's a little different because one person wrote the books.
Hmm.
Like some of them, it's like can I go back and watch Kevin Spacey movies? Yes, I can because he was a really great. I mean, I'm sorry, the fact that he's an absolute monster does not change the fact that he was a wonderful actor. It doesn't.
Yeah, he wasn't good at his craft, even if he was a piece of garbage, and he is a piece of garbage.
Yes, Mel Gibson, racist piece of garbage. Now, I'm sorry, like he's a wonderful. I love his movies. I am not
I
going to
still like
hate Lethal Weapon because of something he said. I I can hate the man, not the art.
him.
But yeah, but no, this is a really fun movie and a fun series too. And so I don't know what else. Is there anybody else we didn't talk about in this? We have
We covered most of my big points.
Diagon Alley and
That scene is still really cool. I mean, especially that sequence in particular, that is a masterpiece of production design and set design and costume work.
yeah, and it really is a good transition from the Muggle world into the Wizarding world.
Mm.
It's kind of a smooth transition where it's like, you're at a train station and there's just this one little bit of magic where you go through a wall to get to your
Yeah, or like you
platform.
go to this one weird bar, and then
Yeah.
you tap on these bricks, and then bam, everything is different.
Yeah, and so it's you go to all these shops and weird and wonderful things, and it's still set up just like the street that you came off of, only it's magical shops instead of regular shops. And then you get into like the big castle with you know candles floating and stairways moving and
Yeah, Hogwarts is still pretty cool.
but and
The,
pictures.
the Harry Potter ride at that inside Hogwarts in the at Universal Studios is still pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, so yeah, like you said, the production design's pretty cool. I mean, it was up for 3 Oscars. One was set decoration or something like that. Um
Yeah.
I can't remember what second one was, and then it was also up for best score, which
Hmm.
we haven't talked about John Williams yet.
Yeah, I mean,
Do 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 do.
he didn't even have to work on the whole series to leave his mark on it. So like,
No, and that's the funny thing is what did he work on? The first one or two?
first two was like, yep, all right, I'm here. I made my money. I'm out.
And then you have different composers for the rest of the movies, but what's the score that you remember? Do 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 do
Actually,
do do.
one,
Do.
two, and is kind of what brings it all together musically.
Yeah, because John Williams is a master at making these scores that like are just iconic, and you can hum them just off the top of your head. Like
And
even
then the
other
people recognize it.
yeah, and people will recognize it, and because I could say hum 10 John Williams scores, and I
Like,
could do
okay,
it.
well, here's Jaws, here's this, here's the
Yeah, I could do it off the top of my head,
Star
and
Wars.
but other directors that I or other composers that I really love still, I'm like, no, they're just really great composers, but they haven't done anything I can just hum off the top of my head.
I mean, maybe whoever the composer was for Lord of the Rings,
Oh yeah,
maybe James Horner,
who did
like Terminator and
Battle
stuff.
Beyond the Stars?
Of course, Battle Beyond the Stars, of course.
uh,
He might have even done Humanoids from the Deep.
I think he did. I think he did.
Hey man, gotta start somewhere.
He was in the school of Corman.
Yeah, John Williams started with like a bunch of disaster movies, so.
Yeah, because there's other really cool composers out there that like yeah, maybe you can't hum them, but like they're really great. Like Stephen Price is great.
Hmm.
He did Fury and Gravity and the first Suicide Squad, but when they weren't doing music videos in there, the score was
Hmm.
his. Then there's another new guy, Daniel Pemberton, I think is
Hmm.
his name. I think he did. Don't quote me on this. I want to say he did Into the Spider Verse, and he might also have done Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of the Fantabulous blah 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 Harley Quinn.
You mean Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn?
Yes, which actually is a fun score,
Yes, fun score, fun movie,
and I
great
think
use
I
of
got
lighting.
the name right on that, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, this one is just it really worked,
I mean, it's
and
like John Williams is like the classical movie musical, and then there's more. Then there's Hans Zimmer, which I still like Hans Zimmer, but poor guy, he just kind of got sucked into the blah.
blah. And then everything since then has been like just bombastic.
It works, it's fine, but at the same time, my favorite Hans Zimmer score is like Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah, that's a good score.
because it's so much fun.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know what else there's to say about Harry Potter. It really
Uh,
works, and
and this movie had to be really good, otherwise the whole franchise would have failed.
yeah, and they had to find three kids that worked together, and they really did, and it really shows in the first film. Children actors, and all three of them are just fun to watch, and they really have great chemistry. And that
So many things had to go right to get it to work, and honestly, it's a miracle that they did.
yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a high recommend.
Yeah, I mean, it's Harry Potter. You've probably seen it. Worth a rewatch. I watched it with the Riff Tracks commentary, and it was pretty good. Had some good jokes. So,
And I
if you've
know
seen
that you hear a lot of reviewers like dishing on the first movie because some of the other ones are a lot better. But
it,
it's just kind of one of those things where I'm like, those other ones wouldn't exist without this one. And sometimes that's not enough where it's like, okay, yeah, it wouldn't exist without this one, but it's just not that great of a movie. But this one still really works. And
it's still
I
fun. It's still pretty watchable.
yeah, so that's a recommend.
Yeah, and if and for many years we always had the ABC Family Harry Potter weekend.
Nice.
Every other weekend, it seemed like.
um, I don't know if I came up with a double feature for this one this week.
Watch the second one.
Yeah, watch the whole box set.
Watch more Harry Potter films.
I think they're all streaming on Peacock if you don't already own them, which I'm
I
sure a
thought
lot of
they'd
people
be at
do.
like HBO Max, but whatever.
Yeah, it's on one of the streaming services. So,
Hmm.
okay, yeah. So that's your double feature. Watch all 8 movies.
Yep. And
And I
I'm Ruby's Hagrid, keeper of keys and groundskeeper at Hogwarts.
oh, I was just
No
looking through my
post on Sundays.
I just looked through my notes. Another thing we didn't mention was the sorting ceremony.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned how Tom Felton just had to. You need to be a horrible person for the next 10 years. My favorite part of the ceremony is when they're lowering the hat onto his head, and it doesn't even touch him, and there's like Slytherin.
Yeah. The Sword Hat was kind of fun. It's like,
Oh, we didn't talk about the unicorn getting killed, and
oh, yeah, the unicorn blood, Fang the dog,
which is how
the cool centaur guy.
Voldemort was trying to come back, drinking unicorn blood.
Who cares? We know that part.
Yeah, and the and the mirror of Ezra or Desire backwards.
Ha ha.
Uh, and yeah, I think we touched on about all the other really good stuff about this, though. I think it's time to go and see what we're going to watch next time, though.
Yep. Shall we get going on that, sir?
All genres. And we're gonna spin.
Go big or go home, bro.
I have not seen this one before, but it's been on my list. A touching story of an Italian bookseller of Jewish ancestry who lives in his own little fairy tale. His creative and happy life would come to an abrupt halt when his entire family is deported to a concentration camp during World War II. While locked up, he tries to convince his son that the whole thing is just a game.
Pinocchio.
uh, nope, his other movie.
Pinocchio 2.
Pinocchio 2, Life is Beautiful.
All right.
And this is streaming on HBO.
Cool.
All right, so in another couple of weeks, we'll let you all know how wonderful or how beautiful life is.
It stinks.
It stinks.
Always look on the bright side of life. Do-do, 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 do-do.
All right, so until then, though, you can catch me on Twitter at AwesomeKM.
And I'm at Noah_Saturn. That is spelled Satern.
And we're on Instagram at We Don't Know to Watch. And until next time, Wingardium Leviosa.
Avada Kedavra. You're dead.
Aw.